I can, right. We can scroll up. We can see this is the edit page for the card paragraph. And then you see right down here is styles and behaviors. Now, I think this is super cool, but I'm a geek. Once you go into styles and behaviors, you get a drop-down menu here. And within the drop-down menu, you have several choices. You can have an H2, an H3, H4, or splash text. You can also visually hide the heading, and so that you can have a heading on the page for screen readers, but it's not for everybody because maybe you have text in your image, and for a visual user, they can see the text in the image, but a non-visual user can't see it, so you can put it as an H2, and then the content of um, your the content of your card makes sense within the hierarchy of the page. So let's go look at some examples of how this is used. Oops. So here is your default card paragraph. You have a superhead, then you have the headline comes out as a default H2. You can have a description, you can have a button. So right over here is a card that has where the headline is actually visually hidden. So if you're running the screen reader, you will encounter the heading, it'll say H2 and then read the heading, but you can't see it visually. And so that would work well if you have the text already in the image. So over here is a heading 3. This is a splash font. So you want to use this only when you have no other content on your card. And then here's an example of heading 4. So I wanted to put this to use and take a look at it. So right here, we have some cards and they're flowers and just on the page normally, and they're H2s. Now let's we want to look at Douglas irises. So Douglas irises is an H2. And then our purple Douglas iris, our white and lavender, are all H3s. And so when you go in and you edit this, you can select which heading makes most sense on the page. And I want to show you the headings map. Here, this is a browser plugin I like. You can also bring up the headings using Editoria11y. But so you can see here, you've got the Douglas irises, and they are heading 3, whereas the other flowers that were just random are H2s. And so you can do the same with H2s, H3s, and then you can have splash text. And the splash text will not show up in the headings map. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, well, moving on. Another issue we run into a lot is using row and column headers on your tables. So let's jump into that. So right here, again, we went into our make content accessible, and the lessons here is to make a table accessible, you need to add your table headers. So let's go to the discussion on this. So when you use a table on a page, you want to use it for data. It used to be that you'd use it for layout, and that's not really encouraged any longer. When you do create a table, you want to have a caption, you want to have a table and row column headers, and then you want to have information and data within the data cells. So you want to really use it for tabular data. And so how you create a table is when you're in the WYSIWYG, you click on the table icon, and it's going to drop down and give you a grid that allows you to pick how many rows and columns you want. And once you get into your table and you start putting data in, you'll be able to find this row and column and caption icons. So if you want to add a column header, you make sure that you're on the correct column, and then you basically click on this and it'll make it a column header. Similarly, for your row headers, you're going to pick this icon and then you're going to turn it on. You want to make sure that you're on the row header, the row that you want to become the header. And then here's an example of a table, and you can see that it's got row headers and column headers, and it also has the caption. And you add the caption with this icon here. So any questions on tables or any comments, any lessons learned? Okay, moving on.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
I don't think you can see my raised hand.
Oh, yes, because I just lost sight of you. Thank you for jumping in.
Sure. I do have a question about column headers or row headers. Sometimes in a header row, there's the first column might be blank, or one of the data cells might be blank for some reason. If, you have I'm trying to think of an example where it could be blank and I get an error on that. Is there a way to fix it, or is there a way to have an empty cell in the row?
Well, that's a really good question. We have some folks here that know about accessibility. Kevin,
Okay.
Sean, you want to jump in here? What do you put into that
Well,
empty?
a th can't be empty is the rule. So if um I don't know how Stanford Sites works on this, but once you've generated the table row, if you can go in and edit and make it a TD instead of a TH, if there is an empty cell, then that would be accessible. I have an example. I'll post into the Slack um, an
You can
example of this.
Are you saying you can have a TD in a table header row
Yes, you can,
instead of a
as
TH?
long as it's not a header. Um, that would be that's the kind of the trick. And there is an example where you would do that. And like I said, I'll throw that into the chat.
Awesome.
That's a
Yeah,
good one we can, it's not the best idea, but to do on a regular basis, but that's really good to know.
I see a lot. The first cell is blank, and it's got some things down the column and then across, like that.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
in this case there, the first cell is a TD um, but there still is a header over that column, and that's important. You can't just have forget to put a column on there, column header on there. So um, yeah, and again, I don't know what you can actually do in Stanford Sites, but that's how you would make that specific example accessible.
Cool.
Okay, we'll have to check
Thank
that
you,
out
Karen.
later, see if we can
I'll
get
try that.
that works. Yeah, if you try it, let me know what your results are. Thank you for that, Kevin. Any other questions on that? Okay. Let's see, going back to here. Icons. I like icons because to me, they're very helpful when you put an icon, you use it consistently throughout your site, and it has a meaning, a semantic meaning, but it makes it easier for me to scan the page and the icon means something to me. It keeps me from having to read all the text, but I still have, quick information. So, we want to, if you're going to use icons, though, we want to make sure that they are accessible. So icons are images, and so we have to think about them in terms of images. And so let me scroll up here for just a second and give a little background. in the WYSIWYG, if you want to put an icon on, you click here. It gives you a drop down of all the available icons that you can choose from. And then what we recommend is that if you put the icon in there, and then you put what the icon means right next to it. But I know people don't always like to do that. So what you can do is you can edit the HTML source code. So I'm going to jump over here for just a second. To edit the HTML source code, you click on this source button here, and then it changes the view of your editor from a WYSIWYG to an HTML editor. Now, be aware when you get into this mode, you can make mistakes and you can screw up your page. So if you have a page that you've been working on for a long time and you want to make sure that you don't mess it up, what you can do is you can copy the contents of the page over to another place, make your changes, make sure it works, but do make a backup if you're going to be editing the HTML and you're all uncomfortable with it. So what you want to do here is once you're in the HTML, you're going to find the eye icons, the eye element. And so it happens when you push the button and it inserts the icon into the page, it actually wraps it around with an eye. And then what you want to do is you want to add an ARIA label, and the ARIA label will tell us what the text is that you want. So in this case, we're looking at a Spotify icon. So the ARIA label should be Spotify. Now you have to tell the screen reader and the assistive technology that this eye is actually an image. So that's when you put in the role equals img. So that tells the screen reader to know that, hey, you're looking at an image here. And then what I like to do, and I actually love feedback on this, I actually like to add the title. If I'm adding an ARIA label, I like to add the title as well. And that way I can go over, I can hover over this, and they can see that, yes, I remembered to add an ARIA label to it, and that it's probably working. I don't know if does anybody have any comments on that? The problem with using title by itself is that you can't use it when you are on mobile devices. It will not show up. And it can cause other issues as well. But in this case, I like to have it so I can guarantee that or double check my work on the page. Well, it also turns out that we can use Unicode icons, and this is where you can actually just copy an icon from your Google Doc, say, and paste it in. So in this case, I used an accessibility icon, and this is a Unicode. And to make that a Unicode character accessible, you want to actually, unless you know the screen reader is going to read it accurately, you can hide it with ARIA hidden as true, and then you can add a second span, and it's going to read what you want it to say. So in this case, I want this Unicode character to indicate done. And so I'll put a span in there with a class of screen reader only, and it'll read and have it as done. Any questions or comments or best practices learned from this? Okay, moving on. I have one more lined up, and I'm also happy to answer any questions, is the unique link text. So we have traditionally put, on our our news items and our cards is have a little read more link. And that's problematic. And let's look at that for a little bit. What happens though, if you have read more on everything, you're going to run into Siteimprove is going to flag issues like, do these links in this context go to the same page? Or are these links identical? So let's look at this in more details. What happens is suppose we have 3 cards. We have read more for each the 3 cards. Well, when you get the screen reader going and you want to look at the links, and you want to allow somebody using a screen reader to navigate by links. So this is a screenshot of what the screen reader will read when it encounters the links. And this is a links menu from VoiceOver. And when it comes to these links, it's going to say read more, and read more. And if you're looking for a particular card, say example link 3, you're not going to really know which read more link it's supposed to be. So there's 2 ways to address this, and the recommended way is to provide text that's that's visually readable as well as through the screen reader that makes it unique on the page. So in this case, I said read more about example 1, or learn more about example link 2, or more about example link 3. So that would make these links unique on the page. And if you want to learn more about writing descriptive link text from ODA, we've got a link here. Now, if you really, 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 really want to have read more on the page, there is a way to do that in most places, when you're using a text editor, I should say, a WYSIWYG editor. And that is, yes, to once again modify the source code. And then you put in an ARIA label that says something that uniquely describes that target. And then again, what I like to do is I like to put in a title. Every time I put in the ARIA label, I also like to put the title in so that I can hover over it and see that it worked. So for this example, here is this link in action. So you can see that we could have the target, and we could have multiple of the same visible text, but yet have unique link text and unique link text. So to put that in here, you can't use the link field on your card. You have to actually edit put the link into the description field and edit it there. So now I've updated these cards with the ARIA label and the title, and you can see that we have unique link text. Any questions or comments on that?
Hey, Carol.
Yeah.
Sean has a question.
Let's see. There you are.
Carol, quick question. Going back to the font awesome
Sure.
example that you shared.
Let me go back here.
Question is this using, so just trying to understand what Stanford Sites supports. Right now, it looks like it's just adding the font awesome icon. It's not supporting the auto accessibility functionality in font awesome. It's not giving you an interface to add the ARIA label or the rolling image or any of that. It's just inserting the icon, and then someone has to go to the code to do the rest. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I left room for other topics. And maybe, Cynthia, do you have any suggestions on something you'd like me to cover that you run into quite a bit, or Melanie? Or anybody else here?
Hey,
Um,
Carol, Austin has a question, the comment. This
oh,
is,
there we go.
you
Oh,
see it? Yeah.
I just put in the Slack, Carol, in the Zoom chat, an article about how emojis are read differently depending on the screen reader that's being used. So it has like a little graph toward the bottom where it starts to show you like the smiling face. Oh, go further down a little bit, over here where it starts showing you the different ones and how they're read differently. So that kind of goes into why you would want to specify depending on what symbol you're using to make sure it's consistent across the different screen readers.
Yes, this is great. I love this. Thank you for sharing this. And these are good. These are great. They work really well if that's what you want them to say. And if you don't, then you can override it. And actually, that's one reason that it's nice to use the not unicorn, Unicode characters is because it does give, if you do like the text, you don't have to do anything, add any extra HTML to make it accessible.
Yeah. Let me ask a question.
Did we have another question?
You have to.
Oh, let me go ahead.
I just want to feedback.
Hey,
Oh, yeah.
thank you so much for this. It's Linnea.
Hi, Linnea!
Hi, Carol. This documentation is so amazing. I can't wait to. I was just thinking about the reading more of.
I can barely hear you.
Oh, okay, let me get
Speak
close.
slowly or yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so thank you for all of this. I actually had a comment, which is I always think about accessibility as being for everyone, the same way you do. And one of the things that I could say is that we all need accessibility sometimes. Like you might be on the BART and not be able to hear something. It's so loud. But what I was thinking about with the read more is that as much as we can put the ARIA text in, which is cool, that doesn't make it scannable for people. If we're thinking about just the general use case, I'm a huge supporter of what you were saying. Just have it expected. Don't try to do it if but so
You're breaking up. Can you,
this is last question and one of it.
Linnea, you're,
Yeah.
I didn't quite catch what you said. I heard mumbling. Or
Oh, darn.
try it again. Slowly.
Okay, very slowly. I just wanted to say that I'm a huge supporter of the first thing that you said about read mores, which is just let it be something that you can read and everybody can read, and don't worry about the ARIA tags. So it was an upvote for option 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for all this.
Anybody else? Cynthia, you had something.
Yeah, and this also is similar to read more, and then further down the page, there's a link to the same page, but it has a different text. And that sometimes runs, and I get issues around having links be, it's going to the same page, but the link text reads differently. And then
Oh, right.
So-
Help me out. Where is that? Right. So well, let me back up. I have it on here. Let's see. Link text, wrong one. Okay, let's go back to, here we are, this one.
especially if it's something important, like you want them to apply and you're linking to their registration form, it might be at the top of the page in a button, apply now, and then maybe at the bottom, it's like register now in some other language, and it's going to the same place.
So is this what you're talking about for the same destination, use the same link text?
Yes. So
Okay.
if it's not the same link text, then I get it
You get
shown up list of
this
issues.
here, yeah. And so let's see if, I don't know if we have a good example of that. I don't have an example of this on here. But yeah, so if you have two links on the page and they go to the same place, you don't want to have different text, because imagine you've got the screen reader going and you have you know, user guide feedback and Stanford Sites User Guide, and they actually go to the same place, that can be confusing. And so you know, you really want to, anytime they go to the same place, you want it to have the same link text. And that's this thing here. Does that answer that, does that, I don't have good documentation on that yet, but you know, that's what's nice is it's in progress. And every time I figure out just something else to add, I add it. Any other,
Just another comment on that. Does the link text need to say what the title of the page is that you're going to?
that's not a requirement.
Okay.
You just need to make sure it's clear.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, well, I'm gonna, we can end this early if you want. I think we're supposed to be over in 5 minutes anyways.